I've done experiments where I'm talking with someone, and when I put my tomboy energy in, they like listen to me. But if I like put my normal energy in, they start to like say things to me like, oh, okay, so you're like a vocalist, or like they try and navigate my sound check for me and don't listen to me directing or leading it. That's been like one of the biggest struggles, where now I have it in my rider. It says that I'm a sound engineer, that I'm going to lead the sound check. And that's been something that I didn't think I had to put in writing, which is like kind of wild that I have to do that. But that's just the nature of it. And I feel like with presentation, I'm constantly feeling the invitation to like present more masculine in order to be taken seriously. And I really want to resist that, because I don't think that I have to show that I know a lot of stuff to be capable. Like I just want to like make stuff, and I don't really want to give into that, like you have to prove yourself. So that's my more recent mentality, is like, if I have to prove myself, then it's not the right environment.
That was Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith, and this is SHEROES, a weekly podcast to amplify women, non-binary, and genderqueer voices in music across genres and generations. Sharing our stories is the first step to making music better for everyone. I'm Carmel Holt. On SHEROES, we talk a lot about the lack of visibility of women in tech, and there's been several studies detailing huge gender bias in electronic music, audio production, and engineering. So it's remarkable when a woman's name becomes synonymous with mastery of any of those things. This week's guest is a known expert in all three and has been called a savant of the modular synth. Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith hails from the Pacific Northwest, was classically trained, and is a multi-instrumentalist and singer. She studied composition and sound engineering at Berklee College of Music, but when she discovered her love for the modular synthesizer, it became a central component of her work, which blends traditional instrumentation and her voice with synthesis into beautiful and at times playful soundscapes. Kaitlyn's been releasing albums for a decade, as well as composing film scores, collaborating with artists such as Hot Chip, Panda Bear, Fortet, and doing remixes. And this week, we celebrate the arrival of Gush, her 9th album since 2015. I am so thrilled to welcome Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith as this week's Shero in the Spotlight. First, I want to say an official welcome to Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith. Did I do it right?
Yeah, you did it right.
Nailed it. We're here to talk about your amazing new album, Gush. First of all, talk to us a little bit about your particular journey. You started off as a classically trained musician, right?
Yeah, I studied classical guitar and wanted to be a conductor. So I studied orchestration and also wanted to do film scoring. And while I was studying that, I also started getting more into sound engineering, and that became my degree at the college that I went to. And then after graduating, I was feeling a lack of accessibility to orchestras, and was trying to decide what to do, and decided to just let go of music. And I sold my guitar, and I just like sold everything and moved into a different pursuit. And within like a week, a very kind neighbor lent me a Buchla synthesizer and was like, spend some time with this, see if you like it. And so I started composing and just actually like really getting to explore sound and the fundamentals of composition and learn how I approach sound in a very like pressure-free way for about a year, because I had that foundation of I am no longer pursuing this as a career path. It like opened up such a space of presence for me to be really curious. And during that process, I just really fell in love with synthesis and learned everything I know about synthesis from that experience. And it's still how I approach synthesis. And now it's like this really beautiful merging of all of the things, writing for orchestral instruments, using my voice, synthesis, sound engineering. And yeah, I'm really grateful and happy that it came back to me.
That's an amazing story. And it's interesting because I've had several conversations lately with artists who, because of one circumstance or another in recent years, found themselves like without a record deal or things kind of fell apart. And then they were like, I'm going to quit. And then the next thing they knew, that kind of perceived loss or difficulty in that moment really sort of opened things up in a way that they didn't expect.
Yeah. I know there's a beauty to like when you surrender, it like reorients you.
When that neighbor showed you the Buchla synthesizer, maybe I should back up one step for our listeners. Can you explain what that is? If someone has never heard of that or doesn't know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's a modular synthesizer, and it was brought into like the quote unquote mainstream world around the same time as Robert Moog. They both actually appeared at or this is what I've heard. I haven't actually fact checked this to make sure this is accurate, but from what I've heard, they both appeared at a convention showing these electronic devices that they wanted to share, were able to make music. And Buchla went in the direction of interfaces that went away from like a traditional Western keyboard setup. And Moog went in the direction of approaching musicians who wanted to have that familiarity. And Moog uses subtractive and Buchla uses additive synthesis. And I was really drawn to the Buchla for a few reasons. I mean, one, it was the first thing I ever learned synthesis on, and I feel so grateful for that because coming from a classical background, the overtone series is really embedded in me, and it's how I think about engineering and mixing and creating, and my brain is just always thinking about additive frequencies and that philosophy, and so it felt very natural to me. But I love Moog synthesizers as well. I love them all. So that's kind of a short synopsis.
So what was that feeling when you first were introduced to it? Like, were you intimidated at all? Or were you like, let's go, I'm going to go play?
I think more the latter. I wasn't intimidated for the most part with figuring out things. If it's just me and something, then I don't feel intimidation because I know it's just like a matter of building a relationship with something and like having patience with that. If it's me and something and people are watching, then that's when intimidation happens for me.
So when you were a college student, I've heard tell of the experience of women being in academia or the college setting in classrooms where, especially if they're going into a focus of engineering or something that is more tech oriented, that they find themselves outnumbered. Was that your experience as well?
Definitely outnumbered, yeah. My job during college was as a stage manager and sound engineer in the Live Nation venue that was connected to the college. And I think I was maybe there was a while where I was the only female. And then there was like a portion where there was maybe like three of us on the crew. Mm-hmm. And I had a job right after college where I got hired to be a sound engineer on like a touring TV show. And halfway through the tour, they changed my position to band manager because they wanted the females to be the band managers and the males to be the sound engineers. So I did have experiences like that and still definitely interface with that kind of energy, especially when I'm performing live. That's like when I see it the most.
Oh, wow. And I hope it's okay that we're diving into so many of these topics right off the bat, because I also, of course, want to celebrate and talk about this amazing new album. And I was so curious about what your journey has been to get you to this album and like what this, next phase of your music making might be about or the foundation upon which it was built. So take us through the genesis of how you made music and take us to Gush, I guess, is the question.
Yeah. When I borrowed the Buchla 100, my first interactions with it were just like learning the fundamentals of synthesis, just like through my own intuitive understanding of it. I didn't have internet at that time, and I didn't have a manual, and so I was really enjoying just like learning it through relationship. And then I would like run my voice through it, run guitar through it, and piano through it. So from the beginning, it was kind of like always incorporating some sort of acoustic or like orchestral or some natural element to it. And that has definitely stuck since then. And I think at first I was just trying to have fun with it. Like it was just like a journal entry basically of my new life that I was creating because I was on a new pursuit. And so it just became this like daily journal that I had a 4-track and I was just recording every day and not really thinking about it, just like start to finish improvising. And then after I left the place I was at where I had the Buchla 100, I moved to the Bay Area and I had like a moment of sadness where I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm like not doing synthesis anymore, like that chapter's over. And then another Buchla entered my world and it just kind of became this pattern and still honestly to this day is. And I feel so grateful for it because they're very expensive instruments. And so I keep calling them like my synthesizer fairies, where I feel like everywhere I go, someone is like, do you want to play this? Do you want to borrow this? And so I think I continued to stick with it because I was like, well, it's very clear that resources keep like appearing and these are really unique experiences. So I think I'll just stay with it. And then I also started looking for like residencies and universities that weren't using their gear and just finding other ways to interact with rare modular synthesizers that are either more than a house or as much as a house or, too fragile to move. And then would take all those recordings and write parts for like a woodwind ensemble. Or there's this one saxophone player that I would collaborate with a lot. And then it just naturally evolved into me writing songs and sharing albums. And then I had my first record deal with Western Vinyl, and then that grew into other things. And it's simultaneously been like a lot of work that comes really natural to me of like, I have a lot of curiosity and a lot of like excitement for starting ideas and for connection. And so it's like come really natural for me to like constantly reach out to people and like want to connect with them. And that's created a lot of opportunities and still does. And then there's also been like a simultaneous like natural flow that keeps me thinking like, okay, there must be something to this. So I'll stay with it.
So take us to Gush. If you were introducing this album to somebody that wasn't familiar with your music or your background, how would you introduce Gush to them and what it's about?
Yeah, I think it's my 8th or 9th album. And this is maybe the first album where I feel like I'm actually sharing my personality, like my unguarded personality, which I think like connecting to femininity and gender. And like, I don't fully identify as like female all the time, but this album has like a lot more of my femininity in it. And I feel like in the past, because I was navigating such environments where it felt like femininity was seen as like a crutch or as something that would make me less than, I kept that part really hidden. And like, I would just focus on like production and would collaborate with other visual artists and be like, you come up with the visual identity. Like, this is what I'm feeling, but like, you're the visual artist, you come up with it. And this album was the first time where I'm sharing myself as a visual artist because I love photography and I love dance and I love just the poetry of life. And I think I just hit a point where I was like, I don't know if it's not that I definitely care. So I don't want to say I don't care. I hit a point where it didn't affect me in such a strong way to think about how people are going to perceive my vulnerability or my femininity. And I just wanted to create what I wanted to create and share myself as like a true, like my full expression as an artist. So this album, I think, came to me as like the answer to the intention of like what happens when I don't guard myself. And its theme, like Gush, is all about object empathy and about objectification and what it means to live in a world where that is something that we're all doing all the time in many gradients. Like we're constantly, I mean, there's like the far end of the gradient where we're objectifying something in like a really negative way, or there's like a really beautiful version of objectification where we're admiring objects for things that we're placing meaning onto them. And I really fell in love with that concept when I was reading a lot of design literature and like architecture literature. And I just love the way that they talk about objects and the personalities that they place on things. And that really activated my own creativity. And that's a really salient part of me, which is like this sense of presence with interaction in the day-to-day world that's like full of sensuality and romance. And that's just like how my creativity naturally flows. And that's also how I've always approached engineering and like synthesis and composition, is through that more like poetic side. And of course, my brain is like talking to me with technical knowledge when I need it, but I don't approach production in a very technical way. It's like what a lot of artists say, where it's like learn everything so you can forget it. That's like more the approach that I love. And that's like, I think the classical background too, is where like you learn your instrument so that you don't have to think about it and you can just express and like play with the dynamics.
Could you direct us to a song that might pop into your head after talking about all that in that way?
Sure. I mean, I had a lot of fun writing the song that's called Gush. And it's really just about like admiring the genius of everything, like trusting that everything has intelligence. And like, that's my favorite way to live my life, is to just assume that like, even if something is coming at me with like really intense negative energy or like intense energy, that like there must be a reason to this and like it has an intelligence, and like try and follow that thread. And I think that song was super fun to make because it sound-wise very much the relationship of how I feel with synthesizers, where I'm just like constantly like, oh my gosh, talk to me, like tell me. I just feel like I'm in this like constant play with synthesis where it's like showing me new sounds and like we're like flirting with each other. And that's like the sonic version of that.
That's Gush, the title track to the new album by Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith, our guest today on SHEROES, and I'm Carmel Holt. So going into the song, we were talking about your relationship to synthesis, and I was thinking about years and years ago, I may have even been the first time that I met Nick and Amelia of Sylvanesso, and we were having, do you know them?
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing. And we were having this whole philosophical conversation about using synthesizers and using computers to make music, and how there are some of us, I will admit that I'm definitely have been one of those people where it's like, well, it's, you know, not organic and it's not made by humans, and this resistance to, and especially right now with the advent of all this stuff with AI, you know, we've got a lot of, I think, fear around computers and computer generated stuff. And anyway, it was so interesting to engage in that conversation, and it helped me to shift my perspective about computer generated or electronically generated music. So it's just fascinating to me when I encounter people like yourself, like Nick and Amelia, who are able to, not to overuse the word, but synthesize those loves, those passions, those relationships, and bring them together. Can you speak to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up going between Southern California and the San Juan Islands, and it was kind of a constant back and forth between like fully immersed in the forest and fully immersed in suburbia and in the city. And I think it's just always been a part of my personality to listen. I don't know, it's something I'm really passionate about. Like it's genuinely super fun for me to just sit and listen. And so I think that almost feels like the only tool I ever needed for learning music and for learning like how to put things together, because it feels like I can like go into different environments and just sit and listen and be like, okay, here's an environment where there's like the forest, but there's buildings, and like how are these things interacting and how can I create that with sound? And I don't know, it's like I'm like constantly analyzing how spaces and sounds are interacting with each other. And I think that's something that I like to put a lot of time into with my music, is like how to create space. Not with like silence, but more environments, like how to create like bodies for music.
Wow. Have you ever done like a full immersion experience too?
Yeah, I've done a lot of commissions that are like installations for 360 sound systems, and done a few different performances that are either fully spatial or quad.
That's wild. Yeah, I mean, just watching your music videos, which by the way, they're so, so beautiful for this record.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I know that
That
you
means so
made,
much to me because it's
did
like me
you made
sharing.
them? You
Yeah.
made them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like there is a lot of femininity in it. And I was trying to go for more like almost no gender, all gender, like the more like visceral aspects of life that are faceless, that
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
identity, that are things just like in service of.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's why like for all the photos I have like the motorcycle helmet on and
Helmet
like
on.
trying not to like have too much of a face.
Well, that might be a cool segue for us to talk about presentation in music. What can you share with us about your experience navigating this world that is oral, but is also so visual? And we are kind of in this industry, in a world where being perceived is just kind of part of the gig.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much on my mind all the time, especially because I'm someone that doesn't love having attention on me. And I've been like a super resistant performer for a long time. And now I'm like trying to, I guess, reframe that for myself so that I don't have so much discomfort for myself in the experience of it. And so much of the discomfort has come from the psyche trying to hold what it feels like to be observed, and like try and make meaning of like, what does this mean to them? And I think I finally just surrendered to like, okay, I think like a big part of being an artist is like you're willingly being a projection screen. Like you're putting yourself out there for people to project onto you. Like that's a big part of what art does for so many people. And when I think about it like that, then I have less discomfort. I think like taking myself out of it has actually been easier to put myself in it, which is like a really weird concept. And it's taken a really long time for me to get to that. And I'm still getting to it. And I think like it's interesting because so much of the journey, and it still happens, especially at sound check and live performance, but so much of it is, I feel like, being invited to show that, let's see, what are the words for it? It's like, for instance, in film scoring, sometimes I get feedback that, like, I actually had someone say, can you make this more masculine? I've done experiments, like, where I'm talking with someone, and when I put my tomboy energy in, they, like, listen to me. But if I, like, put my normal energy in, they start to, like, say things to me like, oh, okay, so you're, like, a vocalist, or, like, you know, things that they try and navigate my sound check for me and don't listen to me directing or leading it. And that's been like one of the biggest struggles, where now I have it in my rider where it's like, it says that I'm a sound engineer, that I'm going to lead the sound check. And that's been something that I didn't think I had to put in writing, which is like kind of wild that I have to do that, but that's just the nature of it. And I know this sounds like a long tangential way of answering your question, but I think the thing that I wanted to get to is I feel like with presentation, I'm constantly feeling the invitation to like present more masculine in order to be taken seriously. And I really want to resist that because I don't think that like I have to show that I know a lot of stuff to be capable. Like I just want to like make stuff, and I don't really want to give into that like you have to prove yourself. So that's my more recent mentality is like if I have to prove myself, then it's not the right environment anyways. And I feel like just constantly sharing my art over the last 10 to 15 years is like it should be plenty of examples. So that's something I'm navigating all the time. I don't know if any of that made sense. I know it sounded like I was like meandering.
No, I was following. I was following along completely. Yeah. I don't know why this popped into my head when you were talking, but I was thinking about the recent explosive success of Boy Genius and how they all dressed in suits. They called themselves the boys.
Yeah.
And they took over the world for that moment, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, what would have happened, I wonder aloud, had all of them not embodied the other gender, that binary, you know? Like, I get it, you know, but it's like an interesting experiment and an interesting thing to think about if those very same people had worn frilly dresses and weren't calling themselves boys.
Yeah. I know there's been quite a few times that I've thought about starting to release music under another pseudonym in addition to the music I'm releasing and have that pseudonym be a guy's name just to see what the life experience would be like and change my voice into a guy's voice because I play with that all the time. Yeah, it's fun to think about.
I had a guest on once. The band's name was a boy's name, and it was the woman's nickname, but it was like a kind of more male identifying name. I'm blanking on the band right now. But anyway, she was telling me, and she identifies as she, her, and she was telling me how what ended up happening was she'd go to radio stations or gigs or whatever, and she had an all-male band, and literally everyone was like talking to everyone else in the band except her, thinking that one of them was the person who it was who's like the band was on the band name or was on the marquee or whatever, but everybody but her.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So that was like a really right? Like that's an interesting kind of social experiment. You're like, okay, right. Like, these kind of baked in assumptions. I guess the big question is what to do with it, right? What have you uncovered so far as ways of navigating, especially again, you know, like because you are specializing. Am I right about that assumption, by the way? Because correct me if I'm wrong, that there isn't as that many people that identify or that are, you know, born female doing synthesis work. Is that a wrong assumption or that aren't known maybe?
I think there's a lot out there. And I think like it's interesting because like synthesis in pop music has been around for so long. And there are female producers and there are like, yes, there's so many, but not as much recognition out there.
Right. So it's not like the household names, right? That's the thing. That's the difference. And I've been corrected there too. There's so many of us, but we just don't get the gigs, right? Or we don't get the Grammys and we don't get the whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a really amazing organization called We Are Moving the Needle. Amazing.
Yeah, Emily was on the show, actually. We talked about this. Yeah,
she's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's great.
There's only 2 mastering engineers that I work with, and she's one of them. Yeah.
So back to my question, like, would you hazard a guess or guesses at how to fix this?
I know it's a really big question that I don't have the answer to, and I'm constantly experimenting. And it's fascinating because one of my answers to it, like a long time ago, was because I think when I was a teenager and I was first writing songs and I saw the way that I was being treated And I was like, no, I don't want that. And so that's when I was like, okay, I need to learn how to engineer. And that's when, as a teenager, I started like shadowing producers to learn how to run their studios. And I think I've always gathered extremeness as my container for softness, like doing extreme sports or doing extreme physical things, or like learning something so intensely that I can be like in an extreme category with it, or like just like going for, and not even in a competitive energy, mostly to protect my own natural way of wanting to be, because I want to be in softness all the time, that it felt like I needed this, or that I need this armor of a type of strength that I identify as like, I feel like I learned it from martial arts. It's like the type of strength where if you're someone who has a lot of self-discipline, you can basically learn anything and do anything. And that's the thing that has felt like the best tool for me, is like, and not to say that I like know how to do, like I don't see myself as someone who has mastered things or anything like that, but it's like the pursuit of patient, stable practice and like falling in love with that process has created this armor where I no longer really care about the results. It's that I'm like in the long-term pursuit of, I want to see what happens for the rest of my life if I dedicate myself to getting better at things constantly. And I think knowing that I think I identified when I was younger that that's not something that comes easily to everyone, that type of dedication to things, and that if someone can like really stick to that, that can be just worth so much more than being able to say whatever technical thing you need to say, or I don't know how to put it into words. It's like something I'm living with all the time. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I'm going to break here to go to another song. And I was wondering if there were any of these songs that felt maybe a little like scary to share.
I mean, in a way, all of them, and in a way, none of them. Because I think so much of writing this album was me like finding so much deep friendship and care with myself, and so much like self-protection that it didn't really matter to me anymore if someone was like, that's too much, or that's, I don't know, it just didn't bother me in the same way. Yeah, so any of them.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, then why don't you take us to one of your favorite tracks, or a track that you're really proud of?
Oh, well, the first one that's coming to mind is not necessarily the one that's like my favorite or that I'm the most proud of, but it's the first one that was written. That one is all about the form of synesthesia that I have, which is connected to my feeling center. And so like I get really strong urges as responses to sounds. And so that was just a embodiment of that energy.
That's a track called Urges from Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith's new album, Gush. We have her in the SHEROES Spotlight this week. And my name is Carmel Holt. This time is flying by the way.
I know, and I just wanted to circle back to, I really do wish I had the answer to that question that you were asking.
How to fix it?
Yeah, I really do. And I don't. It's been really fascinating. I live part-time in Lisbon, and getting to witness the Portuguese culture has been really interesting to me, because the way that Portuguese translates to English, the way that the women speak there, it has a really different cadence than a lot of languages. And so the cadence is like very strong at the front of each word. And it comes out with this intention of like, you need to understand me. You need to understand me. And at first I was intimidated by it. And then I started really enjoying the way they were using sound. And I haven't like adopted it yet or tried it out yet, but I'm really intrigued with like when you put an intention into the way that you speak, of like having that energy of like, this is for you to understand, and like, this is for you to listen. We're making a connection. And I don't know, I want to experiment with that more.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching a video of you working, and I think it was on the Buchla in your home. It was from many, many years ago. And I was thinking about your love of connection. It's fun to play with metaphor and embodiment and how, you talk about synthesizing and connection and how like what you're doing is actually like a manifestation of those inclinations, instincts. It's so cool. Like, of course, it makes so much sense.
Oh,
And in that way, it's helpful to me because it helps me to humanize something that is technological, which doesn't always, as I said to you before, doesn't always resonate as like a human thing.
yeah. Yeah. I know. I feel like what from the very beginning did that for me is just constantly having the thought that I get to make sound with electricity. Like I get to make art with electricity. And that
Yeah.
really humanized it for me because I just feel like electricity is like everything. It's what makes everything animated.
Yes. Yes. There was a quote that I found. Let's see. I wrote it down because it hit me. It was something about like our nervous system. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Right. So there's this question, right, that people ask, like, you could dismiss it as kind of like hippie or woo woo. Is like, what brings you joy, But you were speaking on that, like you were reflecting on what brings you joy. And you felt, I'm going to paraphrase, I felt as though if I was going to heal these physical things in a sustainable enough way and make music and tour, I guess you had maybe some illness going on or something, a physical ailment. I have to connect with that seed. And the answer kept coming back to electricity and just feeling really connected and in admiration of electricity in its many forms. Right, because of your health issues, you were understanding the nervous system. And it was an aha. The electrical system of your body is your nervous system.
Yeah.
Like, again, yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. That still really resonates. And thankfully, I don't have those health issues anymore.
I'm very, very glad
Yeah.
to hear that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Shifting gears just a tiny bit, earlier you were talking about the long term, kind of being excited to see where all this is going to take you in the journey of life as an artist. And another topic that I talk about here is longevity of career for femme folks, which it seems like, for example, like in jazz music, right? Or in blues, it's not as unusual to see people, regardless of gender, aging into their, golden years and beyond, continuing to do what they do. But because again, the physicality thing, I don't know what it is. We live in an ageist society, and let's just say it's a little bit more challenging for women. What is your perspective on that? Has that been something that's ever been of concern for you in terms of like, I have an expiration date, I got to get going with this career stuff?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. Like, I think I have a lot of mentors and examples that are like in their 70s that are like just getting started. And that's how I like constantly am seeing my future. And I think I uh, have like really spent a lot of time on honing in my lifestyle so that I can feel like, okay, maybe when I'm 60, that's when I'm gonna like really have my dance career. Like, who knows?
I love that.
And I think, yeah, there's a lot of examples that make me feel excited. And I think I stay focused on those ones. And I reference trees a lot because I've had a lot of experience with planting trees and watching that process of letting something grow in its own time and like how long it'll like continue to give fruit when it has like the right growth cycle in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think also learning about tree health the last 2 years, I've gotten more into like hobbyist tree climbing where it's like you're in a harness and like you're going really high up in the trees. And to
Whoa.
do that, I learned about identifying tree health. And that's been something that's been really interesting to me is just like in general, having that connection with growing something or being a participant in growing something really constantly helps me reflect on my own lifestyle of like, oh, if I catch these things as they're coming into view, then I can bring myself back into alignment in a way easier way. And that'll like help me have longevity. And I don't mean that just physically. I mean it like mentally, emotionally, all of it. And I think, I mean, I have no idea. I'm only 10 years into having a music career, but I think longevity has a lot to do with the health of all of those things. Like, how are your relationships with yourself, with your creativity, with the people you work with the people who listen, with the people who have like come before you or are coming after you. Like, all of that feels really important.
What are you most excited for with this new album?
I think all of it. I think sharing all of it is like a big excitement for me because, yeah, it's just a new experience for me to show all these sides of me. So that feels really exciting.
And you're touring with it, right?
Yeah, I'm touring in the fall in Europe and in the UK, and then the US will probably be next year.
So is anything that you're talking about in terms of what you're revealing about yourself for the first time on the album, is any of that going to show up in your live performance?
I think it depends on the resources available, and that's like a really real aspect of it. As much as I would love for it to be like the biggest, best performance imaginable, like a spectacle, that's just not the reality of being a touring musician right now. There's some shows where I'll get to like have like a lot of the things that I wanted to have with me. And then there's some that will just be me performing the music. And I think that is something that I'm really excited about because I have in the past always had visuals and had things for people to keep their attention on so that they're not connecting with me. And I think this time I'm really wanting to have more environments where it is more about me connecting with the audience and like, what are we making together? What is the like third thing versus like, here I am sharing a show for you.
Speaking of mentors and learning from elders, have you yourself had the experience of younger folks learning from you or letting you know that seeing you has helped them get their start?
Oh, yeah, it's been really, really sweet. And I do a lot of one-on-one mentorship lessons. And that is a combination of helping people through wherever they're stuck in their creative process. And I really love doing that. And I have it available for booking on my Instagram page. And then sometimes people are with me for like a really long time. And sometimes it's people who have never played music and are like, I want to learn how to play music. And then we make an album together, meaning I guide them through how to make their album. And sometimes it's people who have had like creative trauma. And that's something that I love working with people on because I have a background in different subconscious and therapeutic modalities. And it's something that I'm constantly recovering and regenerating in myself. And it's just something that is inevitable, I feel like, with all artists is like creative fatigue, creative trauma. And so that's something that's the nice thing to interact with people on.
Can you define creative trauma?
Yeah, I mean, I think what has always resonated for me with trauma is when a split or a break or a fragment happens where something can't be understood, like a disconnection happens. And that can happen in the creative realm where things get either placed there temporarily in that gap to make sense of something so that we're not just like spiraling. And what maybe got placed in that gap is assumptions or like suggested things from the world around you or like things that we've made meaning of that hinder our expression and hinder our relationship with creativity. And so it's like going in with each person one-on-one to find out like what happened, where was the break, and then creating those connections again and helping the mind and the subconscious like understand what happened and understand the way forward and like what protection needs to be in place so that that kind of split doesn't happen again.
Amazing work. So important.
Yeah, it's something I need all the time.
Wow, that's so cool. I had no idea that you did that kind of work.
Yeah, it's fun. It's something I just do on the side, and it's been it's been really fulfilling because it's really incredible to watch people remember themselves, to see someone come in with a belief of like that they can't do something. And I don't know, I feel like the thing that it lights me up the most is encouraging someone. And I feel like I can like really quickly see where someone is like amazing at something. And I get so excited to point to it and be like, oh my gosh, I can see this working for you.
That's amazing. This feels like a great place to close, even though I feel like I could talk to you for easily another hour. And you've been so generous with your time. Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith, thank you for being with us on SHEROES. Before we go, I want to give you this magic wand. Here you go. I'm handing it to you through the screen.
I have it.
Okay. This is a SHEROES magic wand. It's very special. And with it, you hold the power to change anything in music, in the music industry, for women, for non-binary folks, for queer folks, for anyone that doesn't have an equal platform, say. First wave of the wand. It's kind of first thought, best thought.
Yeah.
What would you do with the magic wand?
Wow. I mean, that hits in a lot of layers. So it's a hard one, especially with the things that feel like they can't be said.
Oh, there's nothing that can't be said here. That's the whole point of this thing.
I know. It's great. Yeah. I mean, I think I'll just say visibility because I feel like there's just like so much invisibility. And then we're constantly internalizing like, why isn't this thing working? And it's not that the thing we're doing isn't working. It's that it's not being shown. It's like literally being hidden. So I think visibility.
That sounds right to me. May it be so. With thanks once again to Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith. Take us out, please. Pick another track to close our time together.
Yeah, this next one is Into Your Eyes.
With thanks once again to Kaitlyn. Thank you for being with us on SHEROES. What a pleasure.
Thank you. It's so nice to talk to you.
Massive thanks to Kaitlyn Aurelia Smith. Her new album, Gush, is out now on Nettwork Records. SHEROES is produced by me, is mixed and mastered by Kelly Drake. Our original theme music is by Lucius. SHEROES is also a nationally syndicated radio show. Please visit SHEROESradio.com to find out more. Keep in touch on Instagram and Twitter at SHEROES Radio. And please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps us grow and bring you more SHEROES. Until next time, remember, music is our superpower. I'm Carmel Holt. Thanks for listening.